Hey everyone, Craig with Aviar Real Estate, your Conejo Valley real estate expert. And I wanted to talk to you guys quickly about kind of home prices and where things have been and where they're going, because there's a lot of concern, and I talk to a lot of people on a regular basis about concern about where the market is. First question I always get is, how's the market? Where's it going? Where things are going? It's the most common most common question every realtor gets all the time. And so I wanted to talk a little bit and kind of dispel some of the fears that I know a lot of people are having about the market. I've talked to a lot of buyers. I've had a lot of buyers and people in general say, you know, we're going to hold off. The market's going to crash. Values are going to drop. I've had clients last year who were in escrow and they pulled out because, hey, market's going to drop 20, 30%. I'm going to hold off. I've had that happen a lot lately. And with the data that we're seeing and the experiences that I'm having, as well as my colleagues around it, we're not seeing that. So I wanted to just kind of put some information about there as far as what's really going on with home prices right now. Now, last year, a lot of times in the fall, we were seeing a lot of headlines. I know CBS News was putting in information. U.S. housing prices could plunge 20%. The Dallas Fed warns. Fortune's Lance Lambert were saying there are now 210 U.S. housing markets at risk of a 15% to 20% house decline, and a bunch of other articles that were happening last year in the fall that were stating this. Forbes actually just put out an article on April 1st titled "The Housing Market Correction is Losing Steam," and national prices since June have really only dropped about 5.1% on a national level, not even a regional or a local market. So here's a little bit more information. This graphic shows home price appreciation since January 2023 on a year over year for the top 20 cities, and mostly what we're seeing is outside of the kind of the western cities, and ones that are kind of in particular tied in correlation with the tech areas. For the most part, on a year over year in the top 20 cities, we've seen an appreciation to a small degree. Obviously, as I said, Portland, San Diego, San Francisco, Seattle, those areas that we can see prices have dropped on a year over year, but according to the S&P Case-Shiller report, things are up about 3.8% on a year over year since January, since last year. This next graphic shows a year over year appreciation by region from January. So this is from the FHFA people, and basically is what we're seeing. The Pacific, where we are out here, we've been fairly flat. Prices were up in January, they kind of fell after in the summer, and they've kind of started to come back up. So for the Pacific, they've been about flat. Obviously, the South Atlantic at the highest increase over there, but we've seen a lot of flatness out here in the Pacific side and our side. In this next graph here, it shows a little bit more detail as far as home price movement since January 2023 on a month-over-month basis for the top 20 cities again in the U.S. So on a national level, on a month-to-month price improvement, we're down 0.2% since January of last year. This is according to FHFA again as well. We're seeing, certain cities, large Atlanta, Boston, Charlotte, Chicago, have all been up a little bit, but in general, on a national level, we've dropped on a month-over-month basis since January of 2022 to 2023. Continuing on that part, a month-over-month price change on a more regional level. Again, FHFA numbers here in the Pacific since January 2023, down about 0.6%. Obviously, New England up the most at 2%, but we're kind of seeing a lot of a flat movement here, mostly across the board. Continuing on, home values decline stabilize. The question is, are we still losing value in the homes? And what this is showing on a month-over-month change in values on a seasonally adjusted basis, and it's comparing both Case-Shiller and FHFA, and it's showing basically, if we look at this really from October last year through January, we've seen a very flat level. So that's kind of what we're seeing. Obviously, from January through the spring, we had increases. The market kind of stopped in June, July. We saw some decreases through September, but come October, we've been pretty flat. The bottom falling out that everyone was predicting, that we're going to be losing 20 or more percentage on home values, just isn't happening, and the data is showing that. And this last graph here that I'm showing is a repeat sales price. This is actually a really good one. It's showing like really value, not the median, but the real value of home on repeat sales price. So if, for example, if you purchase purchased a home in January of 2022 for $500,000. By June this summer, when they were at their peak, it was worth $545,000. And now back in January again this year, it would be worth $529,000. So still up from January of last year, certainly down from the peak, but absolutely not the crash that everyone's been predicting that we're going to see. So if you're someone that's kind of been waiting for the bottom to fall out and those sort of things to happen, I'm seeing, and the data is definitely showing that that's just not the case right now. Because inventory is still so low and there's enough buyers out there that can afford to pay for these homes, prices are not dropping. In fact, the last 2 homes that I put into escrow this last week, both of them were in multiple offers, over asking price. One, the appraisals come back and it sold for $40,000 over asking price. It appraised no problem. So we're not seeing that doomsday situation that we saw in 2008 where home prices are just bottoming out and people are losing all sorts of equity. Did we have a correction? Yes. Was it anywhere near what we were expecting or what was being touted in the news? Clearly, the numbers are showing that it is not. So if you've been sitting on the fence and concerned or waiting for the market to drop, I think you might be waiting forever, because it just doesn't seem right now, at least what we're seeing, that the market's not going to come out. The amount of inventory that we have is just too low, and the amount of buyers that are looking to buy, there's just still too many of them. So if you guys are waiting, maybe reconsider that. So if you have any more questions kind of about the market, where it's going, how it might work for you, what your situation might be, click the link below, send me a direct message. I am happy to have a conversation with you guys about your situation in our local market and what that means to you when going to buy a house. So please feel free to reach out. I'm happy to help however I can. And remember, guys, in this market, who you work with matters. So keep that in mind when hiring or referring your next realtor. Thanks, everyone. I'll talk to you soon.